I'm your hostess, Jacquelyn Rodriguez, and today we have a very special guest, Robbin, the founder and CEO of Violet Botanical Skincare. And we are really excited about our conversation because we're going to be diving into clean and sustainable ingredient sourcing, which I think everybody on this podcast, listening to it, is really interested in why is that so important and how do we do it and how do we make sure that we're finding the right brand. Welcome, Robbin. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for inviting me, Jacqueline. I'm excited to have a conversation and a chat with you.
Yes. We had a great one-to-one a few weeks ago. I don't know. Time goes by so fast.
Especially in the summer. It's going by too fast.
For sure. So, Robbin, tell us a little bit about you and your business and, how you got started.
Right. Well, like you said, I am not only the founder and the CEO of Violet Botanical Skincare, but I'm also a trained herbalist and botanical formulator. And how I got started is, necessity is the mother of invention, and that fierce mama bear instinct in me, because our son, when he was a baby, he had eczema. And at the time I didn't know it was eczema. And I was like, oh my goodness, what did I do? This is my one and only child. And I think I did something wrong. What did I do? And then come to find out he had eczema. And so the first thing they do, now this is 19 years ago. So the first thing that they do is the first line was to give steroid creams. And so as I was, going to get the prescription filled, and the pharmacist says to me, he goes, when you have that one-on-one with the pharmacist, he says, oh, do you know how to use this? You got to use it, for 2 weeks, and you got to cycle it off for 2 weeks. He said, because it stops the growth of your skin. I'm like, what? Like, roll that back? So he says, yeah, that's how it works. And so I was like, oh no. And so he was telling me about it and how his kids have eczema. And he's like, none of this stuff really worked for them. And he said, the only thing that worked for my kids was traditional Chinese medicine. And I thought, that's interesting. I said, okay. And so I remember my grandmother, she would make these remedies. She would send my grandfather out to the yard, to the garden. She was like, Willie, go get this, go get that, go to get this. And a lot of times it didn't taste good. It didn't smell good, but it worked. And that's what made me go, you know what? Let me go back to my ancestry and my grandparents aren't with us any longer. And I thought, okay, let me think. I sat there many days in her kitchen while she was whipping up stuff. Let me figure this out and how I can look for something that is going to be clean and natural and not have to cycle it off and on because it's going to stop the growth of our skin.
That's wild to me that's what steroids do. Because imagine, and that's such a big impact. And I know that traditional medicine has its place. It definitely can help with certain things, but I do think that they're very quick to, just automatically give you an antibiotic or steroid. And we're starting to build up tolerances around that. And unfortunately, you said this was 19 years ago. I don't think much in the medical industry has changed. So I'm pretty sure that if you come in and you ask today with eczema, they would still give you a steroid cream.
Exactly. And there's some doctors that are trying, because I'm also, not only did my son have eczema, but then I developed eczema and so did my husband. And it's like, there's so many components to eczema, what causes eczema. And so that's what made me just kind of go down that rabbit hole and really start to research. And so I'm an ambassador with the National Eczema Association. I'm a research and community outreach ambassador. And so, and going to the conferences and being part of the research, committee, it's interesting because now you have some doctors, some, not all, because I'm also part of an eczema group on Reddit. And doctors, you're right. There's still first line of defense is that, steroid cream. But now there's some doctors are saying, hey, well, wait a minute. Let's do an integrative approach. Let's do something like yoga, meditation, Tai Chi. Let's do, natural creams like botanicals and plant-based extracts. Let's start doing some of that. Acupuncture. They're even starting to we're finding these other modalities, they work. And so, like we were joking off screen about, your plants, but we really are humans. We're of the earth. We are of the earth. So it's like those things, those type of holistic things. And I agree with you. Yes. If I'm in a serious accident and, yes, give me what I need to keep me alive. But if it's something that's not life threatening like that, let's slowly build up before we get to the pharmacological aspect of it.
Yeah. And I have seen some doctors and we have a lot of nurses that come into the salon. So nurses, doctors, they're in there and they're talking to us about what's happening. And there is a small shift I see in how they approach things, especially certain doctors. Because of what we do in the salon, we attract more of those holistic doctors anyway. But I even saw that one of our nurses said that they're even bringing in like Reiki is some of those treatment rooms for their clients, their patients rather, that are there long term and shifting their energy and what's happening around them. It is absolutely wild how amazing these other modalities can help. And especially, I'm of the belief that if we bring the two together, how powerful would that be?
Exactly. And when you think about the history of pharmacology, or even think about the history of hair products, like your industry, or skincare products in my industry, well, it all started from plants. But then when the Industrial Revolution came and we want stuff faster, cheaper, and larger quantities, and then that's when the synthetic stuff started coming out to mimic the plant-based stuff. And I look at it this way, like why be a first-rate second person when you can be a first-rate first person, Well, so all of that stuff it's trying to mimic, it's trying to mimic the botanical and the plant life. And here's, and I know they say, okay, well, because we can control it. We can control what it's going to do and everything. But also, and as an herbalist, and this is the herbalist in me, is that, for instance, say if a plant, say it chamomile, let's just say chamomile. Say if chamomile is growing in its normal environment, but all of a sudden something happens to that environment, some kind of weather thing happens to that environment, and now the chamomile is being attacked. So in order for it to survive, it needs to develop other things to help it survive. Well, sometimes those other things that help it to survive, when it's passed along to us, helps us also. So when you take, say a constituent from chamomile and you just want to extract one thing from it, you might be missing like 50 or 75 other things that could be beneficial. So that's my herbalist soapbox.
Well, and the truth is there's so much to a plant. It's very intricate, and being able to bring those things. And, I guess, I'm no herbalist. I'm also not a doctor. I don't know all those things, but I know that even with what plants have to give and what we are really looking to get to the root of some of these problems. Right. Whether, with you, it's eczema if we're looking at skincare. But like you said, even when we're looking at hair care and things like that, we need to start looking more at the root cause of it and then take a look at what can help with that, whether it is botanicals or if it is synthetics. I feel like there's a place somewhere there for each of those. Now, I do want to make sure that we hit on the sustainable sourcing.
Yeah.
And if you could help bring me into like, what does that actually mean? And yeah, just what does it mean? And then I have another follow-up question.
Okay. So for me, sustainable sourcing is I want to first and foremost try to find ingredients, again, that are indigenous. Ingredients that are not farmed, that are not over harvested. So the ingredients that I use, they naturally fall to the ground. Some of them are upcycled, for instance, like marula oil. It comes from, think of a stone fruit with marula oil. Marula fruit, think of a stone fruit like a mango. Well, inside, if you crack open that seed, that hard seed, there's like 2 or 3 little pips in there that is full of vitamin E, natural vitamin E oil. So they used to either throw those away or they would use them as cooking stones. But when they found out it was full of vitamin E, now we have this beautiful marula oil. And so for me, sustainability is because I source my ingredients from Southern Africa and Central Africa, and the harvesters, are predominantly women. They just go out and like pick this stuff off the ground. It's just like, it falls to the ground naturally in its natural environment. So it's not farmed. It's not overly sprayed. They're not cutting down, no deforestation is happening. And as a matter of fact, one of my ingredients that I use, is Nilotica shea butter that I get from Uganda. At one point, because of all the wars that were happening, and they couldn't sell this shea because they're in wars, who's making and buying shea. And so they were cutting down the trees for firewood, but now they put a moratorium on that. So for me, that's sustainability, like stuff that it's just time honored. It's been there. You're not harming the environment to access it and to produce it.
I love your answer because that exactly hit the nail on the head of what my follow-up question was like, how do we make sure that we're not causing more harm? Because when we're looking at natural ingredients, at like essential oils and different things like that, it can actually be worse for the environment because of deforestation. And now we've got to try to grow more. And how do we deal with that? And as consumers and, salon owners who are listening, how do we make sure that the brand we're using is not going to be causing more harm?
Right. So for me personally, I know first and foremost, I try to look for small family-owned producers, farmers, suppliers, because then there's less of a step between the farmer, the harvesters, and me. Because I was speaking directly to one of the farmers. He's in Botswana, and he said, between me and you, sometimes there could be 5 to 6 middlemen in between there. And so I'm like, wow. So when I'm sourcing my ingredients, I try not to go to large chemical companies, because large chemical companies, they do sell the ingredients that I use, the marula oil, the Nilotica shea butter, and the mongongo oils and all that. They do, but it's, when you have that large corporation, I think there's a disconnect. So, and it's not easy. Trust me, it's not easy. But, when I get my head around something, I'm like a dog with a bone. I just like, I'm going to figure this out, one way or another. I'm going to figure this out. And that's what I do. I just keep vetting. And I call them, and I know sometimes they probably think I'm a pain in the neck, but I call them and I have my questions ready, and how many steps are you are you working with the people? Are you working with the women's cooperative? And I just find that smaller independent suppliers, I find that I can get more of the truth of like how many steps of, how many degrees of separation are you from the farmer, from the harvester, from that women's cooperative. So, I just kind of think small, like in the global sense of things. So like I said, I source my ingredients from Africa, but I think small. So I don't go to the major corporations. I mean, and we know what the major corporations are. So, but I just try to look for small family owned, producers.
I love that, because that's actually what I do as well. Now, with hair and when we're looking at color, getting hair color and sourcing certain things like that, we simply can't go to smaller. The beauty professional brands that are out there, it is, for me, I make sure that I'm that dog with the bone. I start asking questions. I call repeatedly. I ask them for their certifications and where is the ingredient sourced from, and looking at those pieces, making sure that even though they're a larger company, because we can't go smaller when we're talking about professional products that we have to use in the salon, we can't always use. Now, I will go smaller with a lot of different brands that I can bring into the salon, but maybe is not that professional brand. And I know it can feel overwhelming, right? And greenwashing is a thing. So how would you go about verifying, not from a brand perspective, but like for the salon owner listening, how would they verify that the product they're using is truly clean and sustainable?
Right. So, well, first and foremost, like you said, I look at the certifications. Like, what certifications do you have? And like you said, I will write my questions down, and then I'll call them and I'll ask them specifically questions like, do you know who the supplier is? Like, your supplier for this XYZ, do you know, are they working with are they fair trade? Are they working with, the cooperatives? Are they working with the farmers? Like, and I ask them specific questions like that to find out, because you're right. Sometimes you can't get stuff, but I will ask them those questions. What are your certifications? And then I ask them also for like, a certificate of analysis, like the quality, like, let me see, give me that certificate of analysis of that product, of that ingredient. Let me look at it and see, is it third party tested? Okay, so it's tested where it might come from, but now once it gets here to the States, is it tested by a third party? And can I have access to that? Can I have access to that testing? And to me, I feel comfortable if someone is willing to give me that information. Like, if they're like, oh, well, we don't have that. Oh, well, we keep it in our files. That's a red flag to me. That's a red flag. And that's but if they're willing to, because I'm Leaping Bunny certified cruelty free. So everybody in my supply chain has to be cruelty free. So I have to get all of my supply chain to fill out this form, and I have to reapply every year. When you find that you're, running up against a wall and they don't want to give you that information, they don't want to supply you the certificate of analysis and that kind of stuff, that should be your red flag.
100%. I cannot tell you how much time I spent when I started this whole journey, calling those companies for the salon products, asking those questions, because online, especially at that time, but even now, we don't always see the full ingredient list. We don't see all of those things online. And it had me asking questions. And when they were dancing around the question, automatically it is not a salon. Not a product that I will bring into my salon.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't check all the boxes of my clean and sustainable. We have 7 points that we have to go through in my salon that will vet whether we are going to use that type of product or not.
Exactly. And and when I'm asking my questions, I kind of do that attorney thing. Now, I have no legal background, but from I do that attorney thing where they said an attorney never asks a question he or she doesn't already know the answer. And so I do my research beforehand. And so I already know the answers. I'm going to see if that supplier is going to give me the answer. So, and what about this and this? And like I said, I already know the answer. So that again gives me another cue that, okay, hey, they answered this legitimately. This is what I found in my research. Or like, that's not true. That's not what I found in the research. That's another red flag for me also. And it is time consuming, but for me, I mean, I'm passionate about this. So I'm just determined that I want to do the right thing and I will take that time. And yes, it takes more time. It takes longer. I know salons can be busy, but this could be a thing that you can get an intern to do. So if you bring it, you have the interns say that they come. I know, my aunt has a cosmetology license and she has a salon back east. And so she would have interns. And so when they kind of have downtime, maybe ask them like, hey, you know what? Can you look up this company and this ingredient and get the information for me? So that can be a way you can do it also if your salon and your book is really busy.
I love getting people to help me with those things because as a salon owner, I am busy and I don't have the time to do that. And then there's another little tool that you can use, which I have a directory, have started that where I've started putting the information together. I don't have it all because there's a lot of companies out there and I'm continuing to bring on different companies and different points that I have to, vet them with. So
Exactly.
that's also, I'll put a link in the show notes to the guide where you can start to learn a little bit more and just know that I'm going to continue to grow and grow that as well for businesses.
And trade shows is a great place where you can, just kind of throw one rock and hit a lot of suppliers and I do that the same thing when I go to trade shows. I find out who's going to be there. I'm like, okay, I want to see this vendor, this vendor, this vendor. And again, I have my questions in my head. I know what I want. And I want to hear what they say to me. It's like, that old saying where you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth and use them in that denomination. And that's what I do. I listen. I'm like, what are you saying to me? I'm like listening. And my grandmother always used to say this thing and I never understood it as a kid. And then she was always like, read between the lines. Hear what they're not saying. Like listen to the things they're not saying. Yeah. And that's how I do it.
Yeah. And I feel like you can feel somebody's energy too, whether they're trying to skirt around, the facts or whether they're giving you truthful information. Another thing that comes up when we're looking for, as a salon owner, we're looking at different products and we're looking for ones that are going to be profitable. Tell me a little bit about your profitability and breaking down how can we actually make this a profitable switch for us.
Right. So in the beginning, I was sourcing my ingredients from Africa, but it was a lot of the ingredients that they were ubiquitous. You can find them, everywhere. And I thought, how do I get out of that? There's a book called like the blue ocean. So how do I get out of the shark infested waters and get into that blue ocean? And then I thought, well, let me bring some unique ingredients. Well, of course, when you're bringing more unique ingredients, more rare ingredients, they cost more. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to raise my prices. But I found that people when you know, and this is what people say to me, this is not me saying it. This is when I go out and I'm doing pop-ups or trade shows. People say to me, wow, you really know your stuff and you know your ingredients. I bet you most people in here don't even know where their ingredients come from or whatever. So I really make it a point, and I found that people are willing to pay for better ingredients, more quality ingredients. And then also when you have more quality ingredients, you use less. And so I'm think about the long-term cost. So as a salon, and when you have your retail side of the salon, you tell the people, well, for instance, like my products, you can use from head to toe. Yeah, you can put them in your hair, you can use on your face, your body, everywhere. And so I said, so now instead of you buying your face cream and your serum and your this and your that, you know what? One product, you can use it from head to toe. And you don't have to use a lot. And when I let people sample it, they're like, oh, wow, you're right. This little drop or this little pea size really covered my whole arm. And I didn't feel like I was really stretching it. So when you give people that education and you just tell them and you're transparent, I'm really transparent about anything. And that's to my customers and even to competitors. Cause I look at it this way. You know what? It's okay. We can use the same ingredients, but you don't have my same story. You don't have my same energy. I don't have your energy. I don't have your store. And that's how I find that I'm really truthful with people and I know my stuff. I make sure I'm not selling you something that I have not researched and I don't know. And if you ask me questions about it, I can tell you about it. As that book says, inside, outside, upside down.
And all of this directly aligns with salon owners as we're building out our business and we are bringing in maybe higher end products. And I did a cost analysis and broke down a bunch of different professional brands, and the cleaner brands were not always the most expensive. So it really depends on, number one, where you're starting, right? So that profitability margin is going to really depend on where you're starting. If you're starting with a really, really low, cheap end product and you go to a higher end that's clean and sustainable, you're going to have a bigger gap there, right? And that's the difference. But the biggest thing here is when you're building out your services and you're building out what brands you're going to bring in there, it is all about the client experience. How are you making this client feel when you're there? Like you said, the education. If you bring on a new brand, educate yourself, educate your staff, and then you bring the client along on that journey and you educate them. And most of the time I have seen our cleaner, sustainable brands, they are more concentrated. You do not have to use as much. So their products are lasting a lot longer. So that higher price, when you break down, again, cost analysis, this is something we share with our clients. If you're spending $60 on a bottle of shampoo that lasts you 4, 5, 6 months versus every single month having to get a new bottle of $12 shampoo, you're saving.
Exactly. And I had a client, she texted me Saturday. I was working at an event. She was texting me Saturday and she says, I need products. She's local. So, and I'm like, well, I'm working. So she says, okay, well, I need products. She's like, you're going to make me go to the store and buy some lotion. I need some products. And so when I finally messaged her and she says, that bottle, the jar that I bought the last time, she said, it lasted me. This is an 8-ounce jar of body butter. She was like, it lasted me for like 2 months. She said, and she and her husband uses it. And she said, and it lasts like for 2 months. And so that was the thing that, like I said, when I figured out, like you said, $60, but it's going to last you longer. It'll break down. One time I had someone at my booth and I have a 1-ounce oil that I sell and I have a 3.4 ounce marula body oil that I sell. And the lady, she was going to get the 1 ounce and then she did the math. no, let me take the 3.4 ounce because the cost per unit per ounce is cheaper for the 3.4 ounce. And I said, that was one time, and I've been doing this for 9 years now. One time I've had someone stand in front of me and say that. And I said, exactly. And I have a client, she orders it once a year. It lasts her once a year. And it's like, because when you have quality, and like you said, it's more constant. Natural doesn't mean that it's not effective or it's not concentrated. A lot of times, a lot of natural can be very concentrated.
Yeah.
And so, but like you said, it's that education. If you educate your customer and explain to them, and I've done the research, and they said that people are willing to pay more money if they know they're getting a better product, better ingredients, if it's green, if it's sustainable, if it aligns with their values, they're willing to pay more for it. I know I do. I go to the farmer's market, and the farmer's market is a little more than the supermarket. But it's knowing that, I know my farmers. I mean, I know them, Ryan and Garrett and Rose, and I just feel good getting it from them. I know how they take care of it. And so, yeah, I'll pay, $1 or $2 more, but it aligns with my values.
Yeah, for sure. And clients will pay for that. But it is really, really important when you start to make these changes and you bring on a new brand. It is not, you don't just increase your prices because you brought in a new brand. It has to be start to finish. What is that client experience and how are you making it unique? And be really transparent. Show them the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. Because if you just go for, oh, I'm clean and sustainable now, and then you're using a ton of plastic or you're not recycling, goes against each other, right? So just be really transparent. You don't have to have everything figured out, but you have to show them what you're doing and maybe your goals for the next few years. If you're not getting them done now, what are your goals for the next few years and how are you starting to incorporate those things?
Exactly. And also another thing is bring in trial sizes. Start small and bring in trial sizes. See if they like it. And then if they like it, then you bring in the medium size. And then if they do, then you might say, bring in the whole kit. You can buy the bundle. You can save with the bundle, bundle stuff. So I would start with like travel size. And I noticed that, and that also worked for me. Like I have a sample kit. And so, it's funny. Every other time of the year, I call it the sample kit. In the summer, I call it the travel kit. Cause it's like, it's TSA. Everything is all TSA sizes under the TSA. So
yeah, nothing gets thrown away at the gate.
Exactly. And I still use glass packaging. I still use glass. And it allows them. And what I do is I bundle everything, all of the products in this one kit. It's a way for them to try it out. The kit is $24. It's like, and you get to try out everything in the whole line. And that's a good way. So salon owners, that's a good way that you can start to transition and kind of get your clientele used to it or get them accustomed. Bring it in small, like start using it on them first. And they're like, oh, I like the way this feels. What is that you're using? Something feels different. And then you bring in the small sizes. Maybe even ask your supplier for samples. Well, can I have some samples? The little sachet packets that you can get. Ask them for samples. And then, start giving them to your clients. And when they're booking their next appointment, hey, you know what? Here's a sample for you. This is what I used today. This is a new product. And hand them that sample. It's like, oh, wow, Jacquelyn, I like that sample you gave me. That was nice. And then, okay, let me start bringing in the small sizes first. And then when that starts to catch on, okay, bring in the larger sizes. So you can ease them into it and it's easing them into it. And then from a financial standpoint, it's easing yourself into it because you're really not outlaying a big chunk of money to get the large sizes. And, you're kind of easing yourself into it also and making that transition.
Well, and I teach all of my students in the academy when you start a new brand, a new professional brand, just bring in a small amount and test it on yourself, on all of your stylists, on all your friends, your family. See how you like that. That's the time that you're educating yourself on what the product is and how do you use it and what ingredients are in it. And you're doing all of that type of work in those first few months because you're just testing it out on specific people. And then once you decide this is definitely the brand for my salon, that's when you start to bring in back bar. And I also teach my students to become a refillery and have the back bar sizes. So then you can slowly bring your clients in. And when they do want a shampoo, they don't have to buy a full 8-ounce bottle. They can buy per ounce and they can get 2 ounces of it, take it home, try it out. And then they come back and they always want a refill and then they buy more and more. So there's a lot of different ways to bring it in slowly. And there's also ways to make sure that profit margin is higher so that you are not losing out on everything. There's just we could go into like 1,000 other things, but I'm just trying to keep a good timing here because we could probably talk for hours.
I know. This, like I said, this is my passion. So, and this is what I do,
Yes, that's why I loved and wanted to have you on the podcast because you're a wealth of knowledge and you do really know all your stuff. You have the certifications, you've worked in the industry for a long time, and you do it from a place of heart, which I find is so beautiful. So tell everyone where they can find you and continue to follow you so that they can learn even more.
You can find me on my website is www.violetbody.net. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Violet Body Me. And then on YouTube, you can find me at Violet Botanical Skincare LLC. And so that's where you can find me. I'm not on TikTok. I haven't made it to TikTok yet. Maybe one day.
Yes. And I will, like every episode, I will have everything in the show notes so that you can easily find her. And just thank you so much for everything that you're doing and all the knowledge that you brought to us today.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for having me on. This was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you'll have to come back and we'll have to talk more about get into more of the botanicals and break down some of those things.
Oh, yes. I'd love it.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and for staying tuned to the podcast. Like every episode, I appreciate you. Make sure you come back, follow, and comment. Message us. We are here. We're real people. We want to answer your questions. So for me, hit me up on Instagram. Tell me you watched the episode and what came up for you. I'd love to hear. Oh.